Yeah, hi everyone. Grant Challenger here with Susa. I'm on the Edge Compute team. I work pretty much globally with retailers of all kinds, from retailers that are in clothing business, food, restaurants, and everything in between. So, wide variety of retailers, and again across the world. Today, I'd like to talk to you about our SUSE's Cloud Native Edge for retail and how we're helping retailers accelerate innovation and automate as they scale their deployments. This being a critical area in retail systems and systems management out at thousands of locations. So, a couple of key points I want to touch on that I'll probably repeat a few times, but we engage with our customers in a number of different areas, certainly technically, but also around the business and the business drivers. And I'd have to say that the number one uh, objective that we work with our customers on is lowering operating costs. Um, and I have to say that SUSE is particularly focused on this in two key areas. One is our investments and our strategy around open source, our experience with cloud native functionality, the cloud experience, and the distribution of workloads between on-prem and the cloud, and really a heavy emphasis on automation. As Kubernetes has improved and matured, a lot of the functionality that we are deploying with our systems in the cloud native edge are heavily automated, where today they may be manually managed through operating teams and so forth. So lots of ways to lower operating costs. Certainly, we're interested in helping our customers improve their customer experience. What this means for us is that there are objectives that involve everything from faster time to support a customer who's on site looking to purchase something and needs help, to blending of e-commerce with on-prem shopping experiences, or what are called omni-channel, and all sorts of technology advantages that might be introduced to the retail environment. And they all need to run as software solutions and be managed by technologists that understand how to manage those workloads. And this really points to the developer experience and the ability to build and deploy and manage those new use cases that will improve the store margins. This could be through any form of reduction in theft to improved purchasing across brands, a whole variety of things that come down to, in many cases, data and the integration of data and analytics. So these are some of our priorities, and I would reflect on these as also our customers' priorities as we work with them on their retail edge solutions. So as I've mentioned, I may repeat these. Let me first introduce SUSE to you. If you're not familiar with SUSE, some of this might surprise you, but this is a 30-year-old company. It's been around, really investing in and helping support the open source community for many years. We're well recognized in the industry as a pure open source company, meaning everything we build, everything we invest in from an R&D standpoint becomes available in open source. We support it. We build in functionality that we see that our customers need. So our customers will say they're trying to accomplish certain things, and we build them into our products, and then those products become open source. We engage our customers in professional services and in support subscriptions of those products. But as you can see over the years, many of the investments we've made have now become some of the largest open source projects available in the industry. Some of the most popular downloads in the millions with K3 and with Rancher and other technologies. So SUSE has been around a long time. You know, something you may not know is that we're fast becoming $1 billion company. We're in growth mode, and that has a lot to do with our focus on certain key markets and certain use cases. You also may not know that when you look across the industries that we serve, we're serving some of the largest companies in the world, whether that be retailers like we're talking about today, but also telco, communication service providers, aerospace, financial services, and many technology firms. Our technology is extremely functional in the core applications that are running business today, whether that be SAP or management enterprise planning, or whether that be other systems. SUSE is pretty much everywhere. Again, just to share with you, if you're not familiar with SUSE, these are some of our customers. I think you'll recognize these brands. But one thing I want to emphasize here is that in the open source community, there are many different projects going on that we invest in and that are happening at all times. But when you look in each of these sectors, there are specific requirements that these sectors have, whether that be government and defense, certain security, and or in telco with real-time radio access networks, and in retail, things like computer vision and so forth. And my point in emphasizing that is that in each one of these sectors, there may be a development cycle or an adoption cycle of certain technologies that over time we build into our products and then get applied to all of these other industries. So while one industry might be moving faster in a given area, like security in the government defense area, we're building all of that into all of our products for everyone and for all sectors. So what is our focus around retail and edge? You know, I think that what I would pause here and say, edge is not new for retail, right? These systems, for you that are actually practicing in retail today, these systems you've been managing for as soon as compute was available to be deployed, 20 some odd plus years, 30 years. We happen to be calling it edge today, and we happen to be taking advantage of new technologies to improve margin and customer experience. But it's not new to you. I think what we're doing at SUSE, we're figuring out how we can do this better than perhaps the way it's been done with virtualization or with containers or with other kinds of technology that maybe the proprietary technologies or more monolithic operating environments have failed to do or have reached their life cycle. And now new ways of doing this need to be considered. So when we look across the industry, you know, a lot of what I've mentioned speaks to this, but the investment in technology is taken very seriously in retail, mainly because it introduces cost. If, for example, you're going to introduce smart infrastructure for the cold chain, that affects the margin in every store. And it better save in waste at a very high level on a per store basis, or at least on a gross performance level for the business. Yes, there are identified problems, and no retailer wants to throw away food or any type of goods. But fundamentally, unless the technology can deliver on reducing that waste, then it's not effective to invest in that technology. And that goes for infrastructure providers up the stack to the workloads and how you build them and deploy them. We're certainly seeing a lot more around customer experience, and you know, sort of bridging or integrating the e-commerce experience with the bricks and mortar, reducing labor costs through certain robotic functions, increasing labor costs where better customer service can be provided. So there's a number of different factors that go into this, but what is the underlying technology? And increasingly that technology is getting simpler on the one hand to develop, but on the other hand, to support it from an infrastructure standpoint is harder. You know, building the applications, the algorithms for running AI or automated shelf technologies or computer vision are expensive and complex. But the more automated we can make the infrastructure layer, the better. And that's what we're working on. So these are just some of the emerging technologies that we see in the store of the future. Whoops, sorry about that. This slide doesn't seem to want to happen. Sorry, guys. So why SUSE for retail? You know, I guess this is a bit of a soapbox, but what I'll tell you is that between open source and the cost of managing infrastructure at the store, like the capital cost of hardware and the infrastructure layer, we've seen by comparison and competitively that SUSE is 50 to 70% cheaper, less expensive, others would probably prefer I say, than say a VMware or a Nutanix or other options. It's more flexible than a cloud provider trying to run a cloud instance in a small store. It provides many more flexible options around hardware and hardware options, whether that be utilizing Advantech or industrial PCs or smaller clusters based on your workloads. Really, we're seeing the flexibility of Kubernetes overall in K3 as being far less expensive than the alternatives. The other thing is that we're really boosting the profit margins in the stores by enabling new workloads to be deployed and managed in that cloud-like experience, the cloud-native experience. This enables, you know, almost real-time deployment, management, updating, and patching across thousands of locations, and to do it in a manner that allows you to tune it over time, including tuning it down to certain regions and performance requirements. And that's really what Kubernetes and what cloud native can do. But SUSE is leading in the area of automation and doing that in a highly automated fashion. And last, you know, more technology certainly introduces the idea that there may be increasing security problems. Kubernetes in particular is causing customers to question, how do we secure this? You know, our view of this is it must be native to Kubernetes to secure it properly. And we've invested heavily in this area as well. So getting compliance and enhanced security and it really builds out your strength, your confidence on the business side and the technology side to deploy new workloads and to do it on a higher speed basis. So that's why we think SUSE is ideally fit for the retail market. Now, we've introduced what we call SUSE Edge 3.0, and we're actually in a every 3 months or so cycle of releasing new. I think we're just now releasing 3.1. And we consider this to be a validated design. One thing I want to emphasize around that is that this is the entire nature of the SUSE Edge platform is about choice. You know, to us, if it's Linux, it's Linux. Whether it has somebody else's name in front of it or our own name, we know how to manage it. We know how to do it live. If you have thousands of locations today running Ubuntu or running Red Hat or whatever they're running, we know how to manage that identically or even better through our automation and capabilities than the other vendors involved in that situation. And that's important because in this validated design, you need to be able to be transformational. You have to transition over time. We don't believe that anybody has the ability to simply, swap out operating systems and do it wholesale. You have to sort of have a rolling plan to do that, and manage that over time. And we have built our solution to support that type of environment. So what does that mean? It means that you have an existing environment out there. We need to fit into it. We need to be able to validate the configurations and the policies that you have, which of course we've done in our own stack, but we need to be able to incorporate them into ours from your design. Many of our solutions are certified from SUSE, so if we incorporate open source projects and so forth, we certify them. Certainly our hardware support, and that enables us to provide enterprise class support services, and of course long-term support. In the open source world, long-term support might be considered 2 years. We're often in the 4 or 5 year range, and for retailers that's an important timeline, because many of these systems will get deployed and managed over many years. And so we are very much aware of that. So the solution architecture that I'm sharing here with you, on the left-hand side is our management stack in the cloud, or in an on-prem or a private data center. This environment is a Rancher Prime environment managing Kubernetes. However, Rancher Prime can manage workloads from your on-prem environments as well as your cloud instances. And of course, this supports open source, but also bare metal. It's obviously GitOps ready, and or can be a private cloud or in a public cloud environment. So this is your centralized management environment on your left. And then your runtime on the right is a set of technologies that you may need all of, or may only need certain components of. So for example, certainly we recommend our SLE Micro operating system. It's built for containers. It's easily manageable. It's immutable. And I think that, just because you might have a different OS in your environment doesn't mean that this runtime stack won't work with it. And in that way, we're very sensitive or flexible to the choices you've made. But from our perspective, if it's Linux, we can manage it. We also introduced storage for the right use cases and how you need to use storage out at retail locations. Vector, which is under the brand Longhorn, or Susa storage, container security, K3, as I mentioned, which is one of the largest downloads for Kubernetes ever in the world, and then of course the containers and VMs that you might want to run. A word about that. Just like an operating system, you may also have containers and VMs that you need to run in these environments, whether these are from VMware or whether they're from another provider, KVM or Nutanix or whoever. Figuring out ways to help you do that and transition the environment to Kubernetes is part of our strategy with our customers. And some of our customers will move directly from their current environment all the way to Kubernetes. Some are in between, where they're running some Docker containers, some VMs, and are transitioning those over time, working with larger teams, and we could do all of that. So it's about choice, and it's about a normal transitioner over time, which is pretty typical for any kind of deployment out at lots of retail locations. So again, on the left is your management environment, Rancher Prime, which of course is very probably the standard in retail, if in open source and in our customer base. And I think the runtime stack, which gives you choice, but also gives you a fully integrated stack. I do also want to mention our bare metal support. It's not just an x86 architecture. It's also leveraging all kinds of different small footprint hardware. Certainly, we could talk about Raspberry Pi and Nooks and things like that. But I think more like the industrial PCs and things like Advantech i5s and i7s. The point in bringing that up is that in certain use cases, you don't need to have a data center class server. Lenovo makes some great designs as well for retail environments for flexible, smaller footprint, easier to deploy and manage hardware, which of course we support. So this is a high-level view of the architecture. The Edge Stack product lifecycle here, which, as I mentioned, we've just released 3.1. If anyone's interested, we can certainly schedule more time to go through a roadmap. I think what's compelling for the roadmap is to see, as we go out into the future, some of the things that we're investing in the open source community, like Project Margot, and in the CSP market, Project Silva. And my point in bringing those up is that when we embrace those, we're leveraging a whole industry of folks that are engaged in helping make platforms and consistent capabilities available to the open source community. And we're building those into our Susa Edge releases. That's a separate topic of running a roadmap session. But again, if this is of further interest to you, we could schedule that time. Let's just talk briefly about one of our customers, which is Home Depot. Today we're in 2,200 of their stores. I think what we've accomplished there is reducing the operational overhead in managing those stores. At a certain point in time, each store was managed as an individual point. Maybe there was some level of green light, red light at the operations center, but fundamentally, if they had to go and manage their VMs and in that environment, it would require someone actually logging into that environment and managing it, or in some cases, even going physically to the location. The productivity from the developer to production improved. This mainly because of how simple our design is and how it works with lots of different tools and operating environments, and is not overly prescriptive in terms of design by comparison to other systems, other Kubernetes environments. Really, the heavy automation around patching, image building, and deploying are all elements of why this is successful. Markedly less expensive than many other options, and moving towards cloud native, which is in their case a key objective. So overall, reducing costs and moving towards Kubernetes at the overall, at a strategic level, has been Home Depot's objective, which we've supported, of course. Okay, moving pretty quickly here, but I'd like to pause now to see if we have any questions, any inquiries from the attendees. Happy to take them.
Yeah, we have a quick question. Why Kubernetes? Why now?
Yes, it's a good question. I would say from my observation, talking and working with a lot of retailers, there's already a significant investment being made on container workloads and even Kubernetes development overall. Moving that into production and managing it has been one of the big challenges. And so a lot of that's been done with virtualization as the underlying infrastructure to manage the resources and security and other things. I think we're gradually moving past that, but we're in that in-between state. Do we Do we combine VMware or VMs with containers? Do we go bare metal? And in that in-between state, that's a perfectly good answer for Kubernetes. The other thing that we're transitioning to is, Kubernetes used to be much more difficult to develop in and to deploy and manage. And as we mature these products, we're getting to fairly highly automated image building, deploying and patching and upgrading the environments at scale to the point where it begins to make sense. We're maturing the security models for compliance and for all sorts of security risks that previously were significant concerns at on-prem systems, insecure physical locations. And now I think, and we can take a deeper dive at another time at your request to dive into security, but it's a critical area that's matured as well in the Kubernetes world.
And our next question is, what savings can we expect by moving from VMs to SUSE K3?
Yeah, this is interesting. Obviously, I could. I was at VMware for 14 years before joining SUSE. I joined SUSE because of open source and my belief that Kubernetes is the future of computing, and terrific company, but things have changed. And I had a great experience there and great technology, great people. But as we look to the future, the cost of that environment, the complexity of running, I'm just going to say very generally, data center technologies out at a store or at in a on-prem bricks and mortar environment, the two things just don't match up. I mean, these are not data centers. They're starting to look like, some of them are starting to look like data centers, but it's too much infrastructure required to run the workloads you want to be able to run. And at a cost model, what we've seen for both being cloud native and Kubernetes and open source, this is a range, but we're seeing 70 plus less expensive investment to subscribe and support your solutions at regional locations in the thousands. So the cost model is not about licensing, and it's not about counting, every single thing that's out there. It's more about support and how you get enterprise level support for a highly distributed compute environment at a lower cost, and we're clearly delivering that.
And our next question is, can I run some other Linux OS along with SUSE?
Yeah, as I mentioned, our whole strategy is about choice and really your potential to run what you're already comfortable with. I mean, of course, we want you to use our operating system, but it's just not a reality when you've already got thousands of locations and you've already invested in that, you have skill sets and so forth. We get it. The simple answer here is if it's Linux, we're Linux. We know how to manage it. So whether it's Ubuntu or Canonical, or Yocto, or pick your flavor, Red Hat or others, we know how to run it and manage it in mixed deployments as efficiently or even more efficiently than the original vendor. So the answer is yes.
And the last question that we have is, can I manage all of my cloud native workloads with Cloud Native Edge?
Yeah, in fact, a lot of our customers will talk about their, that let's say they have 10 workloads per location and thousands of locations. They'll talk about, the need to also manage workloads that are in warehouses and in other environments, even cloud instances of the workloads. And yeah, we can manage all those in Rancher Prime in a native environment and successfully do that at scale.
And I actually spoke too soon. We have one more question. What is your observability enhancements using open telemetry type open source telemetry solutions?
Yeah, so telemetry is definitely an interesting one. It's generally a lot of data, and uh, in I think the most recent news about this for SUSE is that we acquired a company called StackState. Um, StackState is an open source observability platform that probably best would be another session. If you're interested, we could schedule that and drill down on observability. Our objective is to include observability in all of our environments as a core function. And a comment on that, it's slightly more commercial comment. Um, the current environment is pretty expensive with Datadog and lots of other vendors in that space. We're looking at a far less expensive approach to open source observability and incorporating that not only into the Susa Edge um, product suite, but also into our other products as well. Again, following the StackState acquisition. And there's more to that discussion, but it is a good question. It's a core part of our offering.
And I believe that's all of our questions. We do have a polling question that I will put up now, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to launch this now. And just a reminder, if you answer the polling question, you will be entered into a raffle to win a Yeti mug. And I think that's all we have for today. Grant, is there anything else that you'd like to touch on?
No, everyone, thank you for your time. And again, we'd be happy to spend more time on this and drill down on specific areas, roadmap, security, our deployment stack at any time. Just reach out and feel free to schedule time. Appreciate everyone's time.